When I first started imbibing the Abraham truths, I'll call them, I found myself having to question other things that I used to think as true. So I'm trying to synthesize a couple of different teachings that I've been juggling with all my life. You talked about desire, and in some Eastern traditions, desire is equated with suffering, that having desire is suffering. I have come to the realization, and Abraham has kind of supported that we are desire factories, that in fact desire cannot be stopped and it's okay.
You can't be eternal and absent of desire, because
Right.
the desire is what calls it all forward.
So my imperfect understanding that desire is equated with suffering needs to be replaced with a perfect understanding that the suffering really comes from the lack of immediate fulfillment. That's where we human beings suffered. It's not in having desire, it's in expecting it to manifest immediately.
Let's talk about it. It's even more base than that. You're right on it. But in very simple terms, when your life has caused you to become vibrationally something that you're not letting yourself be, you feel bad.
Yes.
And it is not inaccurate to say, my desire is part of the reason I feel bad, because before I became that expanded being, I didn't feel as much resistance between who I'm letting myself be and who I've become. So we wouldn't say they're wrong, because if someone called you on the telephone and said, hello, you don't know me, I'm just calling to tell you I will never call you again, you would say, okay. But if someone that you cared about called you and said, I'm never going to call you again, you'd feel bad. And some could say, you feel bad because you have the desire that that person calls you again. If you could get rid of the desire that that person calls you again, then you wouldn't feel bad. And we say, the trouble with that is you can't become less than life has caused you to become. You can't regress, you can't undo and be what you were before.
What causes our feelings of guilt in wanting too much? What causes our feelings?
Your belief in something that doesn't exist, your belief in shortage, your belief that if you take more than your fair share, someone else will be deprived.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, you can't get sick enough to help sick people be well. Do you ever say, I've been well for so long, I think I'll be sick for the next 10 years to allow more wellness for the sick people?
I think it does come from an understanding, not an appreciation, but a teaching of shortage, a teaching of scarcity.
A teaching of that's based on action. In other words, and we understand why you'd get there. You have these decided beginnings and endings to your experience that you call birth and death. And so you tend to want to quantify everything in beginnings and endings. It's hard for you to remember that you are this eternal stream of consciousness. And so then, especially when you are action-oriented, in your action orientation, you see there's a limit to how much you can do. There's just a limit to how much you can move around with a physical body in a 8-hour day or in a 12-hour day. In other words, that's what we meant by getting hold of those oars and trying really hard. You really try hard. We watch you, even in this time of incredible technology, you are working hard just keeping up with your email. In other words, you are involved in so much action, even though your machines are washing your clothes and your machines are washing your dishes and the machines are harvesting the crops and the machines are manufacturing the cars. And so in terms of real physical action, Esther watches the people building the buildings, and she says to them from a distance, you're about the only ones that are still picking it up and putting it over there. In other words, there are still labor-intensive things going on your planet, but there's only so much that you can do in a period of time in relationship to action, and there is so much more that you can accomplish when you get into the alignment of thought. When you begin aligning ideas, you could sit for 15 minutes at the beginning of a day and conjure an image of yourself in your body or in your environment or in your business to be or in your relationship to be. And if you could imagine it to the point that you bring yourself to some level of enthusiasm, you will have accomplished more in that 15 minutes of visualization than you could in 10 years of action. We're not kidding you.
I agree. I think you're...
The leverage,
I
the
understand.
leverage in alignment. But most people do not benefit from the leverage in alignment because they think about what they want and they go immediately to what they don't want. So they don't maintain enough continuity. If you hold a thought for as little as 17 seconds, law of attraction responds to it. That's the point where law of attraction kicks in. Hold it for another 17 seconds and another level of law of attraction kicks in. Do that until you've achieved alignment without resistance for 68 seconds, and you have activated the resources of the universe. And your action becomes less necessary when you do that. But most people are not aware of the power of thought or the power of energy vibration because they've been depending upon action and complaining about it too. In other words, if you're joyful in your action, then you're not contradicting your alignment, and that's what we wish for you. We want your action to be the delicious way in which you pluck the fruits of your vibrational labor. We want your labor, there isn't any, to be vibrational, to be thought, to be energy, to be amusement, to be amazement, to be appreciation. We want you to direct your thoughts with an eye to what's happening in your belly while you do it. Esther's really been on this visualization jag because she can feel this avalanche of wonderment flowing toward her, and so she's preparing for the future experience. She knows that their business as it exists, their buildings as they exist, their website as it exists, their financial arrangement in terms of receiving from clients as it exists, nothing is going to be big enough for what's coming. She can feel it, you see, and she can't even imagine what's coming. She can feel it, but she can't even get her thoughts around it. It is so big. And so she's been lying in her bed in the morning and just trying to find the feeling place of whatever it is, feeling good when it comes. In other words, even the idea of an avalanche is like something big is coming at me and it's going to take me over. But oh, to ride an avalanche. You think being on a surfboard is fun. Riding an avalanche is what you have intended to do from your non-physical perspective, you see. So she's been waking up early in the morning and lying in her bed while all is quiet, and she's been conjuring feelings that give her this feeling of expansiveness and this feeling of exhilaration, and she's been working to maintain only positive feelings in it, because she'll feel the positive come and then she feels a little dread seeping in, like we're not ready. And then she'll feel the positive come and then she'll feel the little bit of dread. And so she knows what she's working on, and she also knows that a little bit of dread in the avalanche of good thoughts that she's having feels very much like a sore thumb. In other words, she can feel it right away. What we want Esther to understand is she doesn't have to figure out how to do it. She only has to take pleasure in the dreaming of it. It's the universe's job to figure out how and where and who. It's your job to figure out what and why, you see. And so that's that creative edge that you want to hold yourself on. And when you start thinking about what and why, what and why, what and why, solutions to problems appear even before the problem. So you live problemless as you are moving forward in this exhilaration that you call life. Oh, it is so good. Once you begin to harness the power of your true beingness, you are less interested in action unless the action is utterly pleasing in the process, you see. You don't do stuff to make it happen. You do it because you want to do it. It's already been made to happen through the alignment of energy. And if you really want to lay this out in a way that almost without exception you can really hear that, think about the multi-billionaire who could not possibly justify his receiving of his wealth through his behavior. He's not that fast at anything. He can't manufacture that many cars in a day by himself to justify the multi-billions that he is receiving. You have to accept that there are other factors. All your life, you've seen people who seem to be doing very little thriving, and people who are working their brains out not getting anything in terms of comparison. You just have to know, and you do, that there are other factors, and we're here to tell you the factor is vibration, and vibration is thought, and thought is power, and emotion is your indication of the alignment. Thought out of alignment, not powerful.